Grouping up wins games, there's no doubt about it. The game says it, the pros repeat it again and again, and the stats show it clearly. So why not grouping up, people? In this video, we'll go through everything there is to know about grouping up in Overwatch. So beginners and losties can understand what shouting group up really means, why and when they should group up, how successfully doing it, and what to do when finally all together ready to fight. But also, we'll review who shouldn't necessarily join the flock, and in which specific cases you shouldn't group up. So let's jump into it. Hey guys, my name's Alex and I'm on a Grandmaster journey. Can anyone reach the top tier of Overwatch? The answer in this series, with weekly updates, gameplay reviews and study sessions to follow my baby steps towards Grandmastery. So if you're interested in my progression and in learning with me how to get better at the game along the way, consider subscribing and clicking on that bell icon to make sure to be notified of all my future content. Alright, what does grouping up really mean? Seems obvious, isn't it? It's a basic concept in Overwatch that everyone knows about. Why even going through the trouble of researching it, you might ask? Well, I realize that no matter how easy the concept is to understand, a lot of people don't get to play most of their games how they should be played, grouped up. And there are heaps of reasons for that. Poor awareness, trolling, authority denial, comms off, and deadly picking, just to mention a few. But let's be honest, we can't fix any of those. All we can do is to make sure that newcomers understand the importance of grouping up and that anyone who's trying to group up does it properly at least. We don't say it enough, Overwatch is a team-based hero shooter, meaning that it's supposed to be played as a team. Going alone and try to kill everything by oneself is neither heroic, bold or admirable. It's plain stupid. It defeats the purpose of a competitive game mode. But don't get me wrong, I do that mistakes too sometimes. But honestly, what can someone do by himself against 6 enemies? Nothing 99% of the time, just dying. And same goes against 5, 4 or even 3 enemies, by the way. Trickling is the fastest way to lose a game. Going one by one results in 2 things. It takes away or delays the opportunity to have a fair fight 6v6, and it feeds the enemy all charges, making a positive outcome even less possible. On the other side, if you group up and stay with your team most of the time, your chances of winning the match will skyrocket, your win rate and SR will increase, and some of your frustration will disappear. But knowing that we should fight together in order to win is not enough. We must also learn when to group up. Again, the answer might be obvious, but the truth is, it's not that easy to make it happen. So ideally, we should group up after each fight. The trick is to understand when a fight is lost and to be able to fall back and regroup instead of keeping on fighting and dying. It's counterintuitive to retreat, trust me, I know. I have a hard time to do it. First, because I don't often realize that all my teammates are dead. Second, because I'm so focused on killing that specific target, thinking that it'll help, but I don't see that I'm just wasting time and feeding the enemy even if I succeed. Ideally, we want to pull back as soon as the odds are against our team. Having the first man down can be a big handicap, especially if it's a healer. But that's a bit extreme, and no team at lower ranks would slow down their engagement to wait for the missing player. So to be more realistic, let's say that having 2 men down should be the signal to fall back and regroup. 4v6, 3v5, 2v4 and 1v3 are in a grand majority of cases lost causes. Fighting those knowingly is a mistake. Being wiped out makes the next fight even harder because the enemy will probably have already 1 or 2 ults ready. And that is even more true if you are on the defending side. Let's take an example. We are defending Anubis' first point. It's the initial engagement, so both teams are together. The enemy Widow get a pick on our Hanzo, who won't be able to be back for 30 seconds. Knowing that, they commit to the fight through the left door and try to take our defensive position. Absorbed by the fight in the room, we forgot about Widow's threat, and she takes down our Zen who stayed in her line of sight too far at the back. With 2 men down, we are at a big disadvantage. But we are defending a choke point with a bit of a high ground, so we might think we can push them back, and maybe get a kill or 2 to even the odds. But on top of being 2 men down, the enemy Widow is a big problem. She can take an angle and wipe us out from behind if we don't change position. Plus, the enemy has a big health pack in that room. We should not have let them take it. Reader, uncontested, gets another pick, and before Hanzo can reach us, we get annihilated. So in this case, instead of fighting with our back open a 4v6 battle, we should have backed up here and hold the fort until our Hanzo and Zen get back. But eventually the position will be compromised, and leaving the point to the enemy for a tick or two to regroup here is way better than dying on the point and letting Hanzo and Zen come back alone and contest a point against 4 or 5 opponents. If a wall defending team gets wiped out, chances to retake the first point of the Temple of Anubis before capture are very slim. And actually that's true for most assault and hybrid maps first point. So we should avoid at all costs for that to happen. So even if it's counterintuitive, it's better to just leave a point to the enemy for a bit and get back at them with reinforcements. Obviously that is all theoretical tactics. How often can you see a team do that in ranks? Rarely. And the lower the ladder you go, the less likely it is to happen. But it doesn't mean you as a player should not care and not do it just because no one's on voice chat and no one will follow you. When a fight is lost and we notice it, we always have a choice. To stay against the odds, stick with the remaining fighters and try to pull out a play of a game, or fall back, survive, gain some precious time, regroup and try again. Guess which one gives you better odds to win the match in the end? When talking about grouping up, people usually talk about waiting for all players to respawn before attacking the objective. But in reality, grouping up should be in people's mind all the time, during all phases of a game. Like I mentioned earlier, regrouping mid-fight when being at a disadvantage is a thing to consider. But also when you defend an objective and finished off the enemy, going forward and look for a kill by yourself is never recommendable. Overextending is another good way of losing rounds. Players should stay together almost at all times, while attacking, defending, or waiting for the enemy to come back. Wandering alone, except for a few heroes and cases, is never a good thing. So, to sum up, grouping up is not an action you do once before each fight. Grouping up is a mindset to keep consistently across the whole match. If you stay with the rest of your teammates all the time, you will win more games. But the funny thing is, even if people try to group up, sometimes they fail to do it properly and miss the point of grouping up. I think there are 3 key elements to consider here: location, composition, and action. Feel free to add to those or correct me if I'm getting this wrong. I just studied the question, so I might like a deeper perspective. First point is where to group up. If my team just got wiped out and I'm the first respawning, I want to wait for everyone in a safe place and hit that group up button. Safe place means usually just outside of a spawn room, not around the corner of a point. Not here, but here for example. The reason for that is that near the spawn, there's less chances to get picked by overextending teams, less chances to have teammates peeking on the point and dying before the fight even begins, and less chances for some players to miss you altogether by taking another route. Inside the spawn room would be the safest place, but somehow people just can't manage to wait there in ranks. So you have more chances to gather everyone just outside. Also, if you want to increase your chances to get everyone to join you, you can add a sentence or two to show that you are not pissed or bossing around but just wanting to cooperate. Something like, let's regroup outside the spawn and attack all together through the left door. Whether it's through voice chat or normal chat, whether you get an answer or not, the question form and the extra information will make it more likely to get people to join you. And if you don't want to type in-game that much, you can always write and copy a template message in advance and paste and modify it when necessary. No need to get disappointed or tilted if everyone doesn't join you. It's still better to go with 2 or 3 teammates than none. But there's the second point. Don't make the mistake to not wait for everyone. If someone passes you and does not wait, and there's 2 more people coming, don't follow that player and go with 4. Wait for the last 2 to spawn, it will make it 5. And if you're lucky, the other player who ignore you will still be alive too. So don't leave early, wait for everyone and maximize your chances by having the biggest group possible. Finally, the third point is what to do when grouped up. Sometimes people are waiting for each other and then separate in 2 different groups to attack the point, or rush to the objective with the DPS in front of their tanks, which obviously rarely turn out okay. When you finally manage to group up, everyone should take the same path to the point. It doesn't mean that you have to stay glued together like a horde of penguins on a freezing day. You would be very vulnerable to enemies' ult that way. But going through the same route, preferably the most advantageous one, with your tanks on the front line. Again, that's just raw theory. I will go into the different and proper ways to initiate a fight later on my journey. Now that we've seen how to successfully group up, let's just have a look at the heroes who don't have to group up and the cases where it's best not to. As you can imagine, some characters shouldn't stick with their team. Think Sombra, Tracer, Genji, the true flankers who get the most value out of harassing the enemy backline and taking unexpected angles. It's already more arguable for Reaper, Pharah and Doomfist, who also love to take alternative routes and surprise their targets, but will have a harder time to survive without any support. In that sense, going for a flank should always be a very well-timed and possibly coordinated action. And of course, having more than one flanker per team is rarely a good thing. But the main idea here is, it's not because you're playing a flanker that you can just do your own thing in your corner. Not walking in with your team shouldn't mean that the team is fighting without you. That being said, there are exceptions. Sometimes, no matter how grouped up and organized you are, you can't win a fight. Actually, in some precise scenarios, being grouped up might be the issue. Like when you're trying to get your 6-stack death ball led by Ryan into a choke point defended by a super tough bunker. In general, when you see a bastion behind an Orisa shield, grouping up and attack won't be effective. But again, it doesn't mean that you should go alone in there and try to bring down that bastion by yourself. Everyone should attack at the same time, but in small groups and from different sides. So when some people will serve as decoy, others will be free to land those shots that will bring down the bunker. Another case when waiting for the team to regroup is not the best choice is in possible stalling situations. When there are only a few enemies on point and you're playing a character with great sustainability like Doomfist, Tracer, Mei, D.Va, Lucio or Moira for example, then you might want to rush to the point by yourself and slow down the capture. But that's a risky one. You might end up dying immediately and feeding the enemy if not done right. Know your limits and focus on your objective. Killing is accessory here. Surviving as long as possible is the goal. And to avoid running into a certain death and turning into a useless trickle, going for a stall should not be initiated without precise knowledge of the enemy current situation, meaning knowing how many and which enemies will be on point when you arrive, which I personally can't do yet, reason for what I would rather wait for the team every time. So stalling a point and debunking the enemy's fortress are two good examples of when not to group up. But there are surely more scenarios like those ones, and I'm looking forward to read your examples and anecdotes on that question in the comments below. Just keep in mind that in most situations, grouping up and fighting together with your teammates is the best way to win more games. Think about regrouping all the time and you'll increase your win rate in no time. And that would be it for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave it a like. It helps me know that I'm on the right track with this series. Also, if you haven't done it already, consider subscribing and hit that bell icon to follow my journey to Grandmastery and be notified of all my new content. And here is the most helpful comment of the last video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember losties, losers are not your mind. Tip of the day. When attacking an objective and failing many times, try a different approach or route to surprise the defense team. But remember, splitting up is rarely a successful tactic. Attack through the same path and prioritize the same targets, that's the way to go. Try it on and let me know if it works for you.